Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 351st night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth the Khorasan to Al-Ziyadi, By Allah, hadst thou told me the fact, at first I had not pressed thee. And now by Allah, I will not accept aught of this money, and thou art lawfully quit of it. So saying, he went away, and I set my affairs in order, and repaired on the procession day to Al-Muman's gate, where I found him seated. When he saw me present myself, he called me to him, and bringing forth to me a paper from under his prayer carpet, said to me, This is a patent, conferring on thee the office of Qazi of the western division of Al-Medina, the holy city, from the Bab al-Salam to the furthest limit of the township, and I appoint thee such and such monthly allowance. So fear Allah, to whom be honor and glory, and be mindful of the solicitude of his apostle, whom may he bless and keep, on thine account. Then the folk marveled at the Caliph's words, and asked me their meaning, whereupon I told them the story from beginning to end, and it spread abroad amongst the people. And quoth he, telling the story, Abut Hassan Al-Ziyadi ceased not to be Qazi of Al-Medina, the holy city, till he died in the days of Al-Mamun. The mercy of Allah be on him. And among the tales men tell is one called The Poor Man and His Friend in Need. There was once a rich man who lost all he had and became destitute, whereupon his wife advised him to ask aid and assistance of one of his intimates. So he betook himself to a certain friend of his and acquainted him with his necessities, and he lent him 500 dinars to trade withal. Now, in early life he had been a jeweler, so he took gold and went to the jewel bazaar, where he opened a shop to buy and sell. Presently, as he sat at his shop, 3 men accosted him and asked for his father, where he told them that he was deceased, and said, Say, did he leave issue? Quoth the jeweler, He left the slave who is before you. They asked, And who knoweth thee for his son? And he answered, The people of the bazaar. Whereupon they said, Call them together, that they may testify to us that thou art his very son. So he called them, and they bore witness of this. Whereupon the 3 men delivered to him a pair of saddlebags containing 30,000 dinars, besides jewels and bullion of high value, saying, This was deposited with us in trust by thy father. Then they went away. And presently there came to him a woman who sought of him certain of the jewels worth 500 dinars, which she bought and paid for him 3,000 of them. Upon this he arose and took 500 dinars, and carrying them to his friend, who had lent him the money, said to him, Take the 500 dinars I borrowed of thee, for Allah hath opened to me the gate of prosperity. Quoth the other, Nay, I gave to thee outright for the love of Allah, so do thou keep them. And take this paper, but read it not till thou be at home, and do according to that which is therein. So he took the money and the paper, and returned home, where he opened the scroll and found therein inscribed these couplets. Kinsmen of mine were those 3 men who came to thee, my sire and uncle twains, and Salih bin Ali. So what for cash thou soldest to my mother, 'twas thou soldest it, and coin and gems were sent by me. Thus, doing I desired not any harm to thee, but in my presence spare thee and thy modesty. And they also recount the story of the ruined man who became rich again through a dream. There lived once in Baghdad a wealthy man and made of money who lost all his substance, and became so destitute that he could earn his living only by hard labor. One night he lay down to sleep, dejected and heavy-hearted, and saw in a dream a speaker who said to him, Verily, thy fortune is in Cairo. Go thither and seek it. So he set out for Cairo. But when he arrived there, evening overtook him, and he lay down to sleep in a mosque. Presently, by decree, by Allah Almighty, a band of bandits entered the mosque, and made their way thence into an adjoining house. But the owners, being aroused by the noise of the thieves, awoke and cried out, whereupon the chief of police came to their aid with his officers. The robbers made off, but the wali entered the mosque, and finding the man from Baghdad asleep there, laid hold of him and beat him with palm rods, so grievous a beating that he was well nigh dead. Then they cast him into jail, where he abode 3 days, after which the chief of police sent for him and asked him, Whence art thou? And he answered, From Baghdad. Quoth the Wali, And what brought thee to Cairo? And quoth the Baghdadi, I saw in a dream one who said to me, Thy fortune is in Cairo. Go thither to it. But when I came to Cairo, the fortune which he promised me proved to be the palm rods thou so generously gavest to me. The Wali laughed till he showed his wisdom teeth and said, O man of little wit, thrice have I seen in a dream one who said to me, There is in Baghdad a house in such district and of such fashion, and its courtyard is laid out garden-wise, at the lower end whereof is a jetting fountain, and under the same a great sum of money lieth buried. Go thither and take it. Yet I went not. But thou of the briefest of thy wit hast journeyed from place to place on the faith of a dream, which is but an idle gamut of sleep. Then he gave him money, saying, Help thee back therewith to thine own country. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 352nd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Wali gave the Baghdad man some silver, saying, Help thee back herewith to thine own country. And he took the money and set out upon his homeward march. Now the house the Wali had described was the man's house in Baghdad. So the wayfarer returned thither, and digging underneath the fountain in his garden, discovered a great treasure. And thus Allah gave him abundant fortune, and a marvelous coincidence occurred. And a story is also current of Caliph Al-Mutawakkil and his concubine Mahbubah. There were in the palace of the Caliph Al-Mutawakkil 4,000 concubines, whereof 2,000 were Greeks, and the other 2,000 slave-born Arabians and Abyssinians. And Obad ibn Tahir had given him 200 white girls, and a like number of Abyssinian and native girls. Among these slave girls was a girl of Basra, hight Mahbubah, the beloved, who was of surpassing beauty and loveliness, elegance, and voluptuous grace. Moreover, she played upon the lute, and was skilled in singing and making verses, and wrote a beautiful hand, so that Al-Mutawakkil fell passionately in love with her, and could not endure from her a single hour. But when she saw his affection, she presumed upon his favor to use him arrogantly, wherefore he waxed exceedingly wroth with her, and forsook her, forbidding the people of the palace to speak with her. She abode on this wise some days, but the Caliph still inclined to her. And he arose one morning and said to his courtiers, I dreamed last night that I was reconciled with Mahbubah. They answered, Would all of this might be on wake? And as they were talking, behold, in came the Caliph's maidservants and whispered him. So he rose from his throne and entered the Saragillo. For the whisper had said, Of a truth, we heard singing and lute playing, and it was Mahbubah's chamber, and we knew not what this meant. So he went straight to her apartment, where he heard her playing upon the lute and singing the following verses. I wander through the palace, but I sight there not a soul to whom I may complain or will change a word with me. It's as though I've done so grievous rebel deed, wherefrom can no contrition e'er avail to set me free? Have we no intercessor here to plead with the king, who came in sleep to me and took me back to grace and amity? And when the break of day arose and showed itself again, then he departing sent me back to dream my privacy. Now, when the Caliph heard her voice, he marveled at the voice, and yet more at the strange coincidence of their dreams, and entered the chamber. As soon as she perceived him, she hastened to rise and throw herself at his feet, and kissing them said, By Allah, O my lord, this hap is what I dreamed last night, and when I awoke I made the couplets thou hast heard. Replied Al-Mutawakkil, By Allah, I also dreamed the like. Then they embraced and made friends, and he abode with her 7 days and their nights. Now Mahbubah had written upon her cheek in musk the Caliph's name, which was Jafar. And when he saw this, he improvised the following. One wrote upon her cheek with musk, his name was Jafar hight. my soul for hers, who wrote upon her cheek the same name I cite. If in her fingers had inscribed one line upon her cheek, full many a line in heart of mine those fingers did indite. O thou whom Jafar's soul of men possesseth for himself, Allah fill Jafar, stream full draught the wine of thy delight. When Al-Mutawakkil died, his host of women forgot him all, save Mahbubah. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 353rd night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Al-Mutawakkil died, his host of women forgot him, all save Mahbubah, who ceased not to mourn for him, till she deceased, and was buried by his side. The mercy of Allah be on them both. And men also tell the tale of Wardan the butcher, his adventure with the lady and the bear. There lived once in Cairo, in the days of the Caliph Al-Hakim bin al-Ra, a butcher named Wardan, who dealt in sheep's flesh. And there came to him every day a lady, and gave him a dinar, whose weight was nigh 2.5 Egyptian dinars, saying, Give me a lamb. So he took the money and gave her the lamb, which she delivered to a porter she had with her. And he put it in his crate, and she went forth away to her own place. Next day she came in forenoon, and this went on for a long time, the butcher gaining a dinar by her every day, till at last he began to be curious about her case, and said to himself, This woman buyeth of me a ducat worth of meat every morning, paying ready money, and never misseth a single day. Verily, this is a strange thing. So he took on occasion of questioning the porter in her absence, and asked him, Whither goest thou every day with yonder woman? And he answered, I know not what to make of her for surprise, inasmuch as every day after she hath taken the lamb of thee, she buyeth necessaries of the table, fresh and dried fruits, wax candles a dinar's worth, and taketh of a certain person which is a Nazarene 2 flagons of wine, worth another dinar, and then she leadeth me with the whole, and I go with her to the wazir's garden, where she blindfoldeth me, so that I cannot see on what part of the earth I set my feet. And taking me by the hand, she leadeth me, and I know not whither. Presently she saith, Sit here. And when I have done so, she giveth me an empty crate, and she hath ready and taken my hand, leadeth me back to the wazir's garden, the place where she bound my eyes, and there removeth the bandages, and giveth me 10 silver bits. Allah be her helper, quoth Wardan. But he redoubled in curiosity about her case. Disquieted increased upon him, and he passed the night in exceeding restlessness. And quoth the butcher, Next morning she came to me as of custom, and taking the lamb for which she paid the dinar, delivered it to the porter and went away. So I gave my shop in charge to a lad, and followed her without her seeing me. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And now, when it was the 354th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Wardan the butcher continued. So I gave my shop in charge to a lad, and followed her without her seeing me, nor did I cease to keep her in sight, hiding behind her, till she left Cairo, and went to the wazir's garden. Then I hid myself whilst she bandaged the porter's eyes, and followed her again from place to place, till she came to the mountain, and stopped at a spot where there was a great stone. Here she made the porter set down his crate, and waited while she conducted him back to the wazir's garden, after which she returned, and taking out the contents of the basket, instantly disappeared. Then I went up to that stone, and wrenching upon it, entered the hole, and found behind the stone an open trap-door of brass, and a flight of steps leading downwards. So I descended little by little, till I came to a long corridor, brilliantly lighted, and followed it till I made a closed door, as were the door of a saloon. I looked about the wall sides near the doorway till I discovered a recess with steps therein. Then I climbed up and found a little niche with a bull's eye giving upon a salon. Thence I looked inside, and saw the lady cut off the choicest parts of the lamb, and laying them in a saucepan, throw the rest to a great big bear, who ate it all in the last bite. Now, when she had made an end of cooking, she ate her fill, after which she set on the fruits and confections, and brought out the wine, and fell to drinking a cup herself, and giving the bear to drink in a basin of gold. And as soon as she was heated with wine, she put off her petticoat trousers, and lay down on her back, whereupon the bear arose and came up to her, and stroked her, while she gave him the best of what belongeth to the sons of Adam, till he had made an end, when he sat down and rested. Presently he sprang upon her, and rogered her again, and then when it ended, he sat back down to rest, and he ceased not so doing till he had fluttered her 10 times, and they both fell to the ground in a fainting fit, and lay without motion. Then quoth I to myself, now is my opportunity, and taking a knife I had with me that would cut bones before flesh, went down to them and found them motionless, not a muscle of them moving for their hard swinking and swiving. So I put my knife to the bear's gullet, and pressed upon it till I finished him by severing his head from his body, and he gave a great snort like thunder, whereat the lady started up in alarm, and seeing the bear slain before her, whittled in my hand, she shrieked so loud a shriek that I thought my soul had left my body. Then she asked, O Wardan, is this how thou requitest me my favours? And I answered, O enemy of thine own soul, is there famine of men that thou must do this damnable thing? She made no answer, but bent down over the bear, and looked fondly upon him. Then finding his head divided from his body, said to me, O Wardan, which of the two courses wouldest thou take? Either obey me in what I shall say, and be the means of thine own safety. And Scheherazade perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 355th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that quoth the lady, O Wardan, which of the two courses wouldest thou take? Either obey me in what I shall say, and be the means of thine own safety and competency to the end of thy days, or gainsay me, and so cause thine own destruction. Answered I choose rather to hearken unto thee. Say what thou wilt. Quoth she, Then slay me as thou hast slain this bear, and take thy need of this hoard, and wend thy ways. Quoth I am better than this bear. So return thou to Allah Almighty and repent, and I will marry thee, and we will live on this treasure the rest of our lives. She rejoined, O Wardan, far be it from me. How shall I live after him? By Allah, and thou slay me not, I will assuredly do away with thy life. So leaving bandy words with me, or thou art a lost man, and this is all I have to say to thee, and peace be with you. Then said I will kill thee, and thou shalt go to the curse of Allah. So saying, I caught her by the hair, and cut her throat. And she went to the curse of Allah, and of the angels of all mankind. And after so doing, I examined the place, and found there gold, and bezel stones, and pearls, such as no king could bring together. So I filled the porter's crate with as much as I could carry, and covered it with the clothes I had on me. Then I shouldered it, and going up out of the underground treasure chamber, fared homewards, and ceased not faring on till I came to the gate of Cairo, where, behold, I fell in with 10 of the bodyguard of Al-Hakim bin Amrillah, followed by the prince himself, who said to me, Ho Wardan! At thy service, O king, replied I. When he asked, Hast thou killed the bear and the lady? And I answered, Yes. Quoth he, Set down the basket from thy head, and fear not, for all the treasure thou hast with thee is thine, and none shall dispute it with thee. So I set down the crate before me, and he uncovered it, and looked at it, and he said, Tell me their case, albeit I know it, as if I had been present with you. So I told him all that had passed, and he said, Thou hast spoken the truth, adding, O Wardan, come now with me to the treasure. So I returned with him to the cavern, where he found the trapdoor closed, and said to me, O Wardan, lift it. None but thou can open the treasure, for it is enchanted in thy name and nature. Said I, By Allah, I cannot open it. But he said, Go up to it, trusting in the blessing of Allah. So I called upon the name of Almighty Allah, and advancing to the trapdoor, put my hand to it. Whereupon it came up as it had been of the lightest. Then said the Caliph, Go down and bring hither what is there. For none but one of thy name and semblance and the nature hath gone down thither since the place was made, and the slaying of the bear and the woman was appointed to be at thy hand. This was chronicled with me, and I was awaiting its fulfillment. Accordingly, quoth Wardan, I went down and brought up all the treasure, whereupon the Caliph sent for beasts of burden and carried it away after giving me my crate and what was therein. So I bore it home and opened me a shop in the market. And saith he who telleth the truth and the tale, this market is still extant and is known as Wardan's market. And I have heard recount another story of the king's daughter and the ape. There was once a sultan's daughter whose heart was taken with love of black slaves. He abated her maidenhead, and she became passionately addicted to fluttering, so that she could not do without it a single hour, and complained of her case to one of her body women, who told her that no thing poketh and stroketh more abundantly than the baboon. Now it so chanced one day that the ape leader passeth under her lattice with a great ape. So she unveiled her face, and looking upon the ape, signed to him with her eyes, whereupon he broke his bonds and chain, and climbed up to the princess, who hid him in the palace, while that night and day he abode there, eating and drinking and copulating. Her father heard of this, and would have killed her. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 356th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when the Sultan heard of this work, he would have slain his daughter, but she smoked his design, and disguising herself in Mameluke's dress, mounted horse, after loading a mule with golden bullion and precious stuffs, past all account. Then carrying with her the ape, she fled to Cairo, where she took up her abode in one of the houses without the city, and upon the verge of the Suez Desert. Now, every day she used to buy meat of a young man, a butcher. She came not to him till about noonday. And then she was so yellow and disordered in face that he said in his mind, There must indeed hang some mystery by this slave. Accordingly, quoth the butcher, one day, when she came to me as usual, I went out after her secretly, and ceased not to follow her from place to place. So she saw me not, till she came to her lodging on the edge of her waste, and entered. I looked in upon her through a cranny, and saw her as soon as she was at home kindle a fire, and cook the meat, of which she ate enough, and served the rest to the baboon she had to her, and he did the same. Then she put off the slave's habit, and donned the richest of women's apparel, and so I knew that she was a lady. After this she set on wine, and drank, and gave the ape to drink, and he stroked her nigh 60 times, without drawing, till she swooned away, when he spread over her a silken coverlet, and returned to his place. Then I went down in the midst of the place, and the ape, becoming aware of me, would have torn me to pieces, but I made haste in, and I pulled out my knife, and slit his paunch, and his bowels fell out. The noise aroused the young lady, who awoke terrified and trembling, and when she saw the ape in this case, she shrieked such a shriek that her soul well nigh fell out of her body. Then she fell down in a fainting fit, and when she came to herself, she said to me, What moved thee to do thus? Now Allah upon thee send me after him. But I spoke her fair for a while, and pledged myself to stand in the ape's stead in the manner of much poking till her trouble subsided, and I took her to wife. But when I came to perform my promise, I proved a failure, and I fell short in this manner, and could not endure such hard labor. So I complained of my case, and mentioned her exorbitant requirements to a certain old woman who engaged to manage the affair, and said to me, Needs must thou bring me a cooking pot full of virgin vinegar, and a pound of the herb pellitory called wound-wort. So I brought her what she sought, and she laid the pellitory in the pot with the vinegar, and set it on fire till it thoroughly boiled. Then she bade me futter the girl, and I futtered her till she fainted away, when the old woman took her up, and she unconscious, and set her parts to the mouth of the cooking pot. the steam of the pot entered her slit, and there fell from it somewhat which I examined, and behold, it was 2 small worms, one black and the other yellow. Quoth the old woman, the black was bred of the strokings of the negro, and the yellow of the stroking with the baboon. Now when she recovered from her swoon, she abode with me in all delight and solace of life, and sought not swimming as before, for Allah had done away with this appetite, whereat I wondered, and I marveled. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my tales for the day, until it be morrow.